like to call the city council meeting to order. I'd like to invite everyone to rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Phyllis, how about some roll call here, please?
Terry Koshaw.
Here.
Matt Dyer.
Here.
Tyler Fulenkamp.
Here.
Scott Murray.
Here.
Wiley Sir.
Here. You're all emailed a copy of our minutes from our October 3rd meeting. If you've had a chance to review those minutes, I'd look for a motion to approve them.
Make that motion.
I'll second that. A motion and a second to approve our minutes from our October 3rd meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you. John August, you're first up to talk to us about our multi-hazard mitigation plan and something John's been working on.
We hired somebody. Tim, did you get a copy?
I have the resolution.
Okay, good deal. Good deal. What it is, we have to, every 5 years, it has to be reviewed and updated. Unfortunately, we tried to get a grant last year to update it. We were a little early, so they didn't give it to us. So now that we got it this year, we're a little bit behind the curve, and we need to get this, the county did it this morning, and we need to get the city of Decatur and the other cities to approve this, so that I think there are some grants going on right now for some mitigation processes, and without this being approved, those won't go through, if they do go through, but so I can get him the rod here in the next week so he can include that with his grant.
Is there any change to it from before, or is it look?
Yeah, it is. We had a process where we had, I don't know, we had 37.
Well, I saw it. I didn't read it all. That's why I asked him if there was any change to it.
I can't tell you specifically, Wiley, because it's redone every year. I mean, every 5 years. We actually sit down and go through all the possible hazards that can happen, and then we rank them in the probability.
So the ranking can change from
whoever you have sitting in the room. We had 30-some people this time spend all day, one day, and so you have people who think one hazard is more serious than another hazard and where it ranks. So yes, it's not, we don't just change a couple names in it. It's renewed, but it's redone.
There's a short title on this resolution, is there?
Yeah, there is.
Say, man.
But
I'm not reading that.
Completely done.
So what do you need to do?
You need
Pass a resolution?
Pass the resolution. A motion to... What number would this resolution be?
Resolution 2017-14.
-14. And then pass it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, basically, just so you know, they look at natural and technological hazards, drought, earthquake, extreme temperature, flood, hail, thunder, wind, land subsidence, snow, ice storm, tornado, wildfire, dam failure, hazardous material incident. And they rank those in terms of their probability. They make recommendations with regard to how to mitigate for those types of events. And this is kind of the third of a four-pronged process of looking at, response, preparedness, mitigation, recovery. And this is the mitigation aspect of it.
Actually, it's all the aspects of it, but before we can mitigate the houses and stuff and whatever, this has to be updated, which we are in the process of doing now. Yes.
It's called the Multi-Hazardous Mitigation Plan Update.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to introduce Resolution 2017-14 by short title only.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to introduce Resolution number 2017-14 by short title only. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Tim?
Resolution 2017-14, short title, Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Decatur adopting the Adams County Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan revision.
Motion to pass? Make a motion to pass Resolution 2017-14.
Second. By short title.
Yeah.
No, because he's not reading it. Have a motion, and who's seconded over here? Matt? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Okay, thank you. Resolution 2017-14 has been passed. Thank you, John, for your presence.
Signatures too, then.
We're doing that right now.
Yes. Yeah, you're improved.
Because I need to get that to Rod as soon as I can.
You can have it right now.
Next up on the agenda is third reading of our 2018 budget ordinance. What's that ordinance number, Phyllis?
2017-12.
We did the first two readings at our last meeting, so tonight we're is there any discussion among the crowd of council members before we look for a motion?
I'll make a motion then to place ordinance 2017-12 on its third reading by short title only.
Second it.
Have a motion and a second to place ordinance number 2017-12 in its third reading by short title only. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Tim?
Ordinance number 2017-12, ordinance for appropriation and tax rates.
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2017-12 on its third reading.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second for passage of ordinance 2017-12 in its third and final reading. Phyllis, would have a roll call vote?
Craig Koshaw,
Yes.
Matt Dyer,
Yes.
Tyler Fulenkamp,
Yes.
Scott Murray,
Yes.
Wiley Sir.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2017-12 has been passed, which is our budget for 2018. The next thing I have on the agenda, which was to introduce another ordinance to amend chapters 50 and 53 of our Code of Ordinances of 2015, which pertain to our utilities. And let me preface this by saying that 1 month ago this evening, or 4 weeks ago this evening, Kevin Hackman, our utility director, came to the Board of Works meeting asking us, the Board of Works, he says, please find attached a list of past due City of Decatur utility customers. These accounts are 5 years old and are considered uncollectible. With your authorization, I'd like to write these past due delinquent accounts off as per instructions from the State Board of Accounts. And we have done this same thing every year as long as I can recall. And this year's list is not a short list, it's very fine print. And there was a total of $25,334.90 in delinquent accounts that are 5 years old. Next year it'd be a similar amount. Last year it was a similar amount. These are unpaid utility accounts, which would include water, sewage, stormwater, sanitation, and I'm missing one. Fire protection, thank you. And at that meeting, Mr. Koshaw said, being new to the Board of Works, he's a little more feisty up here, and asked some questions, and he says, I think we need to look into this and look into how other communities do so. In doing that, I followed up then and contacted several municipalities in this area. I guess I can, Bluffton, Bern, Columbia City, Auburn, Woodburn.
New Haven?
New Haven, yeah. And primarily the $25,000 of past due accounts comes from rental properties where the tenant moves out, the utilities are in the tenant's name, they skip out, and they stick us. We get a $90 bill, a $60 bill, $22 bill. Here's one that's $421 that we've been stuck with. And so the taxpayers of Decatur are getting stuck with this. In checking with other municipalities, only one other municipality still allows rental properties, utilities, to be put in the tenant's name. Every other municipality I checked with, it is put in the owner's name. And we have two relatively large apartment complexes, help me out,
Pine Ridge, is that what it's called? Pine Crossing, and then what's the other one? Waterbury? Right now, the owner has all their utilities of the apartments in the owner's name. We have no past due accounts from any of those. These are all coming from landlords of apartments where they are allowing the tenant to keep the utilities in the tenant's name. And I have a very long list, again, 3 pages long, of local property owners who have rental properties that if we would change our ordinance would affect. And I see Steve's here tonight. I don't think there's any other property owners here that have rentals. I had Mr. Baker draft up a couple of different possible ordinances that we could review this evening. However, before we did that, Tim wanted to follow up with the state to see if his ordinances met everything that we needed to be doing.
Yeah, I talked to, finally was contacted by Jody Woods down at AIM. She's general counsel for AIM, and
AIM is Accelerating Indiana
Municipalities. Used to be Indiana Association of Cities and Towns. And I wanted to run this by Jody and see if she had any thoughts or input on this, because in my mind there's a couple of issues that we have to be very careful about. One is due process, one is contract rights. When you enter into or when somebody asks for service, basically they're entering into a contract with the city. So the contractual relationship and obligation is between the city and that individual. If it's a tenant, then your privity of contract is with the tenant, not the owner. So unless the owner is being billed at the same time as the tenant, you raise a question of then whether you can subsequently collect the bill from the owner if the owner never knew that there was a delinquency to begin with. Okay? And that gets into a due process issue or question as well. It would be kind of like if I entered into an agreement with Ken that I promised to pay him so much for some service, and I didn't, and then Ken goes to Craig and says, I want you to pay the bill. If Craig wasn't a party to that agreement, how does Ken enforce it against him? Okay? It's kind of the same principle. So what I'm trying to find out is how we need to word the ordinance in such a way that protects the city from getting into a legal fight over whether or not we can collect against a landlord when the landlord was not party to the agreement. Okay? So I think the first thing that we have to do is look at our ordinance and look at the underlying state law to see whether or not there's anything in the state law that says ultimately it's the responsibility of the owner. Because if that is the case, then we can in our ordinance say that it's joint and several liability, in which case we probably still should give joint notice to the owner, but ultimately if the owner permits the tenant to put the service in the tenant's name, the owner by state law is still ultimately responsible for the bill, and we could still pursue it. The second issue goes to we can lien a sewer bill, but we don't have the same statutory protection for water, fire protection, sanitary services, or stormwater. So what we have to look at there is, does the statute give us some way in our ordinance to allow us to, if there's a shortage or a non-payment of a utility bill and we turn the water off, do we just not turn the water back on until all of the bills are paid? Which is historically what most communities do. But in talking with Jody, she questions whether or not we have the legal authority to do it. So What she recommended is, she gave me the name of Steve Unger, who's with Bozeman McKinney. It's a big law firm in Indianapolis. Mr. McKinney Mr. Unger has done a number of seminars for AIM in the area of municipal utilities and collection. So I'm going to get in touch with him. I want to talk to him about what we're proposing, both versions. Jody, I think, felt that it would be more, you're on more solid ground if you keep the existing method in place where you do allow a tenant, but with the understanding that the owner is liable as well. So I think we need to look at how we do that in a way that's enforceable in court. And then the second thing is, she also suggested that enforcement of that should be henceforward, not something that we would try to pursue for past bills, because again, you get into this issue of privity of
And
contract.
I don't think we were looking at that. We're looking at
Moving
taking care of
forward.
the
Well, I
future.
understand, but the way this is worded, it talks that if there's a outstanding bill, before we allow it to be transferred, that bill has to be paid. And so we are talking about collecting past bills. So what we would have to do is word this in such a way that it
I
says
didn't know that.
commencing January 1, and any bills after.
Because our conversation has all been for future. is
Okay.
what it's-
Okay, so that's not the way this is worded now. So I think that's an issue that we need to address. And I
you
can
said that-
change that fairly easily on that.
Okay.
Her recommendation, Tim drafted two ordinances, one that would put the utility in the owner's name, and one only, and another ordinance that would put it in the owner's name or the tenant's name, whichever the owner and tenant preferred mutually. And you say she prefers that way?
Because historically, that's what we've done. The issue is, as long as it's clear that the owner is joint and severally liable.
Yeah, but doesn't that make it confusing, particularly for our people that administer this on a day-to-day basis? If it was just straightforward.
Probably makes it more complicated.
And it's just straightforward property owner, and that way it's consistent across the board for administering on a
Of all the-
daily basis.
All the other municipalities that I checked, the only one that allowed it to be in the tenant's name, with ultimately the owner being responsible, was Columbia City. Everybody else has it in the owner's name,
The property owner's
the
name.
property owner's name.
Auburn doesn't do that.
Yes, they do.
I've got a property up there right now that's in a sense, but they do send me a notice, and that's what I would want to point out. If you're going to do it and send the landlord the notice at the same time, but find out, wake up someday and find out you owe $490.
Yeah.
Right.
In my opinion, that's the city's.
And you were right, it was Auburn, not Columbia City.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you recommend, Steve?
Well, what you're going at is okay, but I think you need to keep the landlord
In the loop.
Informed.
in the loop,
Yeah.
either with, I wasn't even thinking about monthly bills, but I would think the city, 30 days, if they're delinquent on that, you send them a 10-day notice, and you shut it off for 10 days later.
Kevin, what's
They
our
got a
policy right now?
40-day period, and that's the most the landlord's gonna get stuck with.
It's a state, right, state requires it longer.
The second billing, you get 10 days, you get a notice, and you get 10 days to apply. So it could be almost 60 days
So,
by the time that it's paid.
so everyone else around us has it in the homeowner's name,
Yep.
correct?
Everyone,
And
except
they-
for Auburn, and they allow it
I
either way.
understand, but theirs has held up to the wall.
I think they did it from the outset where it was always in the owner's name, where we're now changing it. So the issue is, can we just unilaterally do it?
And you're gonna follow
I'm
up.
gonna find out.
So this evening, while the discussion's good here, I really don't want to introduce either ordinance until probably 3 weeks from tonight when we have our next meeting. And in the meantime, Tim, you can follow up on that.
And
Would it be easier for you, Tim, and not so much paperwork if we just decided on which route would be better?
Yeah.
Rather than
Well,
go
that's
try to
fine.
go down two avenues?
yeah, and if you have a preference one way or the other, to the extent that we can do it legally, then that's the route that I'll discuss with Mr. Unger.
I would prefer just putting it in
I'd say
a
the property owner's name.
property owner's name.
Okay.
So then we're not messing around with sending delinquents to two different people.
Right.
Steve,
With the understanding that our billing department sends the notice at 30 days to the property owner, so he can protect himself.
Talk to, they still keep record of who the tenants are, so that way the tenant can't skip property owner to property owner, instead landlord to bills. So that way we know if they want to go and move somewhere else, this bill's still outstanding as well. We're not going to turn the water on at this residence until this bill's taken care of.
Steve, go ahead.
Something I haven't heard addressed is also land contracts. Recorded and non-recorded. I mean, a non-recorded is probably a rental agreement. A recorded one, the guy's got the rights just like an owner, except the landlord is the bank. So, if it's at the courthouse recorded, is that an owner? Or is it the recorded owner?
The way this was set up was that it would be sent to the owner as shown on the courthouse records or the county records on the property tax card.
So
What
that,
I'm saying is, if you go check that, you'll have the contract owner first. I mean,
And Kevin, let me ask you this. How much difficulty, if the way we have it right now, is there difficulty other than postage and the time that it takes to issue a duplicate bill to the owner as well as the primary bill to the tenant if that's who the service is
It
in?
wouldn't be a big issue, There's the ability to print duplicate bills, and we have a list of property owners in town,
Okay. All right. Well, I want to talk to Mr. Unger, and I think the other question that I have is, are we talking just residences and apartment complexes? What about businesses? Because you have businesses that are owned by out-of-state individuals who lease it to businesses in the community. Are we doing the same thing there? Because I guarantee you, those leases all require the tenant to pay the utilities.
good question.
Do we have a problem with commercial property?
Commercial aren't an issue, no, because...
So-
But it depends on how you work. You'd have to work that way too as well. Doesn't just be residential.
Yeah, and then that raises a question, can you distinguish between properties? Can you, I mean, you get into a lot of issues, and that's what I'm saying, and until I get a little more direction here, I'm a little uncomfortable giving you something and opening yourselves up to a challenge.
Steve, give us some scenarios of why you would want to keep it with the tenant being billed versus just property owners, as a property owner.
well, it's one less bill. When you're talking about residents, it's one less bill you have to pay for. They're responsible, they need to pay us. Yeah, you can add it on to the rent if you want, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but what you just brought up about commercial is going to be a real problem for a lot of people. If you're going to make the landlord put those in his name. Because most of the spots that I rent, they're all, the landlord, I mean, the tenant pays all the utilities. And you're talking about out of town, you know, check into cash, you know.
But we have just been talking residents with this issue too.
Yeah, and the list of landlords that we have that make up the list of $25,000, 5 years, are all residential rentals. There's no commercial rentals included in any of this.
But that also includes someone that had a foreclosure, didn't pay their bill, moved out. You know, so it's not all probably rental.
No, it's not. It is not all rental. It's the majority, but, yeah. So, if it's okay, I think this evening we just let this rest and revisit it 3 weeks from tonight at our next meeting.
I will recommend to, or discuss with Mr. Unger that council would prefer that this be done in just the owner's name. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, property owner.
Okay. Are you also saying you want to limit it just to residential properties?
I would say for now, that's where we have problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to do undo.
The other thing, I just wonder, if it's state law that you can't enforce a person that's a renter, you can't enforce that, but can't we get do you have emails of these owners of the property that we could, at 30 days, we could alert them that their property owner, their renter isn't paying their bill, so the guy doesn't get hung for...
We have that list that Ken has a list of phone numbers, not emails, but we have phone numbers, the majority of them.
I mean, we're not going to be able to pay this back. We're going to eat it until January 1, but I don't want to pay somebody else's I don't want to pay somebody else's water bill in my form from January 1st forward. And I don't think anybody else in this room does.
And even if we pass an ordinance, we have 5 more years to write off accounts, because this wouldn't start until going forward 2018.
And we do call landlords.
I know we do.
Daily.
Yeah.
And that helps with some. Some are very, all it takes is a call from the property owner. Get that.
Any other comments? If not, again, good discussion, but I don't think we need a motion or anything this evening. I would request Tim to follow up, and we'll revisit this 3 weeks from tonight. Any other comments? Moving on. Got a couple event forms. One is for the Califumpian Parade from the Chamber of Commerce. The other is for the annual community tree lighting, community gathering to kick off Christmas season by lighting trees, meet the Grinch, etc. And that's put on by Classic Crimper Salon and Louise Ray, with Kathy Graves being the person in charge of that. She's already had the 3 department heads sign off on that. Already has a list of what streets will need to be closed. I think it's just in front of courthouse. So if I could have a motion to approve the tree lighting event form.
I'll make a motion to approve tree lighting event form.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The second form, I don't have it completely filled out yet, but we do have a list, I believe, of the streets that are being closed, correct, Craig?
Yeah, I'll do it for you tomorrow.
Okay.
It's the same as last year.
So everything's the same
We
as
were just
last
waiting
year?
on the road to open up, so we didn't know what was going to happen with the parade route.
Right.
So,
So if this evening, pending you getting the 3 autographs in the back of the room here,
Okay.
would I have a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve the Califumpian event pending the proper signatures.
Yep.
and I have to sustain from the vote.
Yep.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you. Now moving on. This evening at 5:30, the council members, one by one, went down and visited the old jail site. Not the jail itself, but the work release building that's out behind the jail. County officials have contacted the city and asked us if we would be interested in the old jail property. And in doing that, they've asked us to partner with them in the cost of demolishing the old jail. The work release building, the county officials think is in fine condition. They suggested to me that we might be able to use that building for something with Park and Rec, something to be used for a trailhead, which actually it's on the wrong side of the river, park, in essence. And anyhow, I know each of you went down there this evening. I don't have a vote in this or anything. I'm just running the meeting. I was wondering what, whoever was able to go down and visit the building, what you thought of the building. Do we have a use for the building? Do you have money budgeted for getting into this project? How much would it cost to renovate the building, etc.? Thoughts? You also...
Well, first of all, we don't have money budgeted for a project such as this. Secondly, I question what we would use that building for currently. There are possibly some structural issues with it, but that hasn't, that's not documented, but I know there are concerns there, but mainly, currently, I don't see where we have a purpose for it, and I'm not, particularly since we do not have budgeted money at this point in time. I would be concerned trying to step forward and entering an agreement with the county.
And what the county's proposed is that they have an estimate of approximately $100,000 to take out the old jail site. They would want to partner with us. If we paid half of that, they would give us the old jail site. But I think along with that, then they wanted us to accept the work release building as is.
And there would be money involved in even just maintaining that work release building. And if we don't have an immediate purpose for it, that means it's sitting empty. And a building that's sitting empty deteriorates much faster than one being used.
I know before Cam left, he called me to his office and he gave me a stack of books, and this was the only thing he told me about. He was concerned about the expense. He was concerned there was no vision for this property. He was concerned of any environmental issues that might be in the ground that they don't know about. So he was concerned that this might be an issue. And what would the city really do with this property? So,
Now we're talking the property that the jail sits on?
yeah. The jail after it came down, or if we had to pay to take it down, or however it all would work out. So he was concerned about that. That was really the only thing he talked to me about before he left.
And I would totally agree with what you just said.
Other comments, Tyler? What about the cost of, if we would accept that building, how much is it going to take to
Well,
make
Shane,
it
when we were
functional?
down there, said that to renovate it would only cost $100 a square foot, but in the same token, he didn't come out to say that there's 5,000 square feet there, so, I mean, if you do the math correctly, that's quite an expensive building
$500,000 is a lot of money.
that you have no idea what you want to do with, so, me personally, I'm not interested in the building at this time.
After walking around the interior and the exterior walls, the load-bearing walls, and in the discussion, they had used A1 mud jackers to elevate the floor in the past, and we noticed in the seams, the expansion joints of the building that they were pulling apart, so I don't want any part of it. The load-bearing walls on the exterior are fine. They look as if they're pretty solid. Some of the windows had some drop in them, and then the interior walls didn't have footers on them. It looked as if it could have been uncompacted aggregate underneath the base of the floor of that building, so I want to walk away.
Okay, now, are we talking about walking away from the entire property? Or I mean, let's clarify this. Do we want to work with the county on the old jail property and tell them we don't want that building that goes with it? What am I to go back and talk to the county about?
My thoughts were with the whole property.
That you don't have a use for the whole property?
Right.
Okay.
We don't have any vision set for that.
No, nor do we have any funding set for that right now.
If they want to tear it down and give us the whole property as vacant land, we'll take it, but it's not, I I'm not interested in it with the building sitting on it. So if they want to knock it all down and they don't want it on their hands, then we can talk, but as of right now.
Okay. Everybody concur with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I even need a motion for that, or just, I'll report back to the county that we're not interested? Okay. Very good, that's that. And that takes us down to the mayor's report. And, I think it was 2 weeks ago this evening, I read a resignation letter from Police Chief Greg Cook. So now we start the process of replacing Greg, and in that process there can be a lot of domino effects depending on how everything works out. So it's been my decision to go ahead and replace, or to announce Greg's replacement now, so that we can continue to work on the domino effect of other positions. And this evening I have Detective Lenny Corral here, and it's my great pleasure to tell you a little bit about Lenny. Lenny just completed his 23rd year with the Decatur Police Department. He was hired August 15th, 1994. Prior to joining the staff, he served as a reserve officer under Chief Paul Rich, and then was hired in 1994 as a patrolman under Police Chief Dick Nowak. Lenny went on to serve under two other chiefs, Kenny Ketzler and current Chief Greg Cook. He was promoted to the position of sergeant in 2008, and then in 2011 to the position of detective, where he currently is serving. Among other involvements, Lenny was our DARE officer from 1997 to 2008. He was the head of Adams County Crime Stoppers Law Enforcement, and still is from 1999 to present. He's served on the DTEC Drug Task Force since 2011 and currently still does. He's on the board of Drug Free Adams County. He's on the Adams County Opioid Task Force, and he's also a drug court board member. And with that, I would like to welcome our next Chief of Police, Chief-to-be Lenny Leonard Corral. Greg, Mike, Lenny, any of you have anything to say?
I have all the confidence in the world in Lenny. He's had a great career. He's well liked, and he gets along with everybody. He's a great decision maker. I think he's going to be a perfect fit for this department.
Any comments, Mike?
Lenny did well in any area he was in, whether it be patrolman, sergeant, detective, and he'll be fine as a chief. I know he will.
Mhm.
And the department will benefit from him being there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, but if we look back, he may be the only one that's hit every rank. I'm not sure about that. We have to
From reserve, patrolman,
all the way up.
all the way up.
I'm not sure anybody has gone through every single one. Adam Skiff, but I think he may have. I could check on it. Or
Okay.
somebody could.
Now, in making this announcement, half of the people sitting here this evening are probably saying, but wait. Lenny has, yet while not filed to run for sheriff, he has announced the candidacy to run for sheriff. And we've talked about that, and Lenny will do what is necessary to end that. He won't be ordering any more T-shirts, put it that way.
Well, I owe Bob to look at some money, because he's like, well, what am I gonna do about it?
Mow your yard in it. Ride bikes in it, you know.
I have already. No, but, when I talked to Ken about it, I talked to a lot of people, about this, and it just seemed right. When I announced for sheriff, it was nothing to do, I hated the department. I mean, I love the police department. I've been there since 1993, and when I decided to run for sheriff, I thought it was a good opportunity because I was in a win-win situation. If I did win sheriff,
I can come back school to do the job I love, and I love being a detective. I thought maybe in a couple of years it might be something for me, but at that time, with Chief Cook's retirement announcement, it was a little shocking to me, but after talking to my wife here, who's been with me since day one on this whole law enforcement career, even when I was a jail officer, it just seemed right, and I'm very happy, and I consider this a very tremendous honor. So I do appreciate it. Not to sound conceited, I mean, I was a very good patrolman, I was a very good detective, and I'll be a very good police chief.
No doubt that you will. No comments from the back now. Okay, that's all that I have. Is there any comments from the public this evening? Any comments from council members?
What about department heads?
How about department heads? Greg or Mike, any other things?
I'm good, thank you.
Les?
We had a really good open house. Thank people for coming to that. Safety Park, Survive Alive, fourth graders will be coming first 2 weeks in November, so we'll be busy there. Looking forward to all the county fourth graders and getting them to experience that Survive Alive house. So.
All right, thank you. Kurt?
Yeah, just one thing. During these meetings, I'm going to try and come up with some code updates that I run across from either the state level or some items that I see out in the general public. Tonight's topic is going to be privacy fences.
Bob, make note of this.
I'm finding a lot of people there's a lot of people out there that don't realize we do have a city ordinance with building codes in it. Over the last few months that I've been here, I've run into a few situations where people are putting privacy fences up and they're not full permits. City ordinance 150.323 requires a permit be pulled for a privacy fence. That's today's lesson.
Thank you. Mr. Carbot?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
How about Don?
Madison Street is underway, as you can see, the contract started storm sewer today.
Kevin?
No.
Jeremy?
A lot of projects are getting finished up. One of the major ones was over the weekend with the 224 opening up. Making a lot of progress. I'm sure that this year's been a great year. A lot of well-needed projects have either been underway or will be completed. Very proud of our guys, our employees, and our contractors that we worked with this year. I think everyone's done a stand-up job. They've stuck together and got a lot of these projects taken care of.
Thanks. Melissa? Nothing. Council members? Greg?
I got one. I just wanted to thank all of Decatur, City of Decatur, the department heads for getting me through the Decatur Highland games. The Parks and Rec provided the trash cans. Jeremy got the trash truck out there. It ebbs and flowed. Also you, John August, thanks for putting together our emergency action plan and fulfilling that. The police department for patrolling. Everyone that was involved, the athletes, it was really a cool event, and we had great weather for that. I just wanted to say thank you so very much. Without the city and the parks and all the people that participated, we couldn't have pulled that off.
And Mary, who was a participant.
Yeah, Mary was in the games.
One thing I was going to bring up, Mayor, was I've had several people ask me now that 224 is back open.
When are the lights going to get
When are the lights going to get turned on?
I have a text message to reply to. I checked on that today. Jeremy, did they ever get back to you on that? There's a meter that has to get turned on or connected.
Conversation with AEP about a week and a half ago, and she did not get back on me. I checked with her again this afternoon. She's out for there. So never contacted me about today, so hopefully we'll hear something tomorrow.
You saw my email to NDOT, right? Asking them? Did I copy them on that? Maybe I did.
They're not. Normally, they would have taken care of that project, or that portion of the project. I'm not sure why they didn't. They're just kind of pushing back on us to
request the meter to be put in since we will be receiving that bill.
We'll be paying for a lights.
But, on the other hand, they should have done that on their own to verify that everything worked properly before we take the lights over and start paying them. So, we're working out the final details on that whole thing.
Okay. Tim?
I just want to congratulate Lenny. He'll do a great job.
You know everything else?
No.
That's not like you.
I know.
Phyllis?
Wish Matt a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
People say things like 29 and
Holy.
holding, really in 39. Yep. So thank you.
Would I have a motion to approve the claims?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to pay the claims. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? We are adjourned.